Good day, everyone. I am John Paul Custodio and I am the facilitator of group number 4 and these are my group mates.
I am John Miguel Cosep.
I am Rosalyn Cantoneros. I am Faith Teneza.
I am Ricky Manuales. And I am Mike Yamat.
And our assigned topic is behavioral theory and cognitive theory.
Behavioral theory is the idea that people learn and change their behavior based on their interaction with the environment. It focuses on how reward and punishment influence actions. Its fundamental concept includes classical conditioning and operant conditioning. In classical conditioning is a behavioral procedure. It consists two types of stimulus. We have the neutral stimulus and unconditioned stimulus. A neutral stimulus doesn't present any specific response, while the unconditioned stimulus that can trigger a natural response. If neutral stimulus paired by unconditioned stimulus, that's what we call conditioned stimulus, and that able to trigger a response, and that's what we call conditioned response. And in operant conditioning, according to Burgos Frederick Skinner, behavior which is reinforced or rewarded will likely be repeated, and behavior which is punished will occur less frequently.
Now we will proceed to the background of the behavioral theory. The behaviorism was begun year 1913 when John Watson are influenced by Ivan Pavlov. Ivan Pavlov is a Russian physiologist. Then he began use the concept of a classical conditioning. Then later on, Boris Frederick Skinner developed the operant conditioning, and Skinner theory focus on reinforcement and punishment. Then later on, behavioral theory are applied to the criminology through social learning theory. Then social learning theory was developed by Albert Bandura. Then it was adapted by Ronald Akers to explain the behavior of the people.
John B. Watson was a very important figure in the field of psychology. He is known as the father of behaviorism because his work helped to change how people thought about how we learn and behave. Watson's ideas about behaviorism are still influential today. They have helped us to understand how we learn, how to treat mental health conditions, and how to design effective educational programs. Burgos Frederick Skinner's operant conditioning theories have been applied to many different fields, including criminology. Criminologists use these ideas to understand how criminal behavior might be learned. For example, a criminal might continue committing crimes if they get rewarded with money or power, or they might stop committing crimes if they are punished with jail time. Skinner's work has helped us to understand how our behavior are shaped and changed by the things that happen to us. Albert Bandura theory is especially important in understanding criminal behavior. People who see violence, crime, or other negative behaviors in the environment might be more likely to engage in those behaviors themselves. This is because they've learned that these behaviors are acceptable or even rewarded. So according to Bandura, our environment and the people are shaping our behaviors, both good and bad. Bandura proposed that this type of learning involved 4 different stages: attention, retention, reproduction, and motivation. Ronald Akers' social learning theory in criminology theory posits that individuals are more likely to engage in criminal behavior if they have exposed to more pro-criminal influence than anti-criminal influences. This means that if someone is surrounded by people who view crime as acceptable or even desirable, and they have rewarded for engaging a criminal acts, they are more likely to adopt those behaviors. Conversely, if an individual is surrounded by people who condemn crime and they are punished for engaging in criminal acts, they are less likely to adopt those behaviors. Ivan Pavlov work on classical conditioning revolutionized our understanding of learning. His experiments with dogs demonstrated that learning is not simply about trial and error, but can also occur through the association of stimuli. His discovery continues to have a lasting impact on psychology, therapy, marketing, and education. So a condition reflex is like a learned response to something that didn't originally cause the response, but you've learned to associate it with something that does. It's like a new learned habit based on an experience.
Sources of behavioral problems. Number 1 is family interaction. Unstable or abusive family environment may reinforce aggressive or antisocial behavior. Example, a girl who grows up in a home where his parents often fight, they yell at each other and sometimes break things out of anger. Instead of solving their problems peacefully, they make aggression seem normal. Because the girl sees this, he learns that being angry and aggressive is a good way to deal with problems. When he faces issues at school like arguments with friends or frustration with teachers, he reacts by shouting or bullying, thinking it's the right thing to do. Number 2 is environmental experiences. Exposure to environments where crime is normalized can lead individuals to adopt criminal behavior. Environmental experiences have a big impact on behavior, especially in places where crime is common, where people live in areas where criminal activities are normal. They may start to see crime as an acceptable option. For example, in neighborhoods with gangs, young people might think that joining a gang is a way to gain respect or make money. They might come to view theft or violence as normal, especially if they see others benefiting from this action. A clear example can be found in urban areas with high unemployment and limited education opportunities. People in these neighborhoods may turn to crime for survival or to improve their situation. Research shows that those living in high crime areas often show more aggression and delinquency compared to individuals from safer, lower communities. And the last one is mass media. Mass media can impact behavior by making violent or criminal acts seem appealing. Repeated exposure to violence in media like movies, games, can make aggression seem acceptable. Example is imagining a child who spends a lot of time watching violent movies where characters are rewarded for committing crimes. If they get frustrated in real life, like being denied something, they might react aggressively, thinking this is a normal way to handle problems. Their exposure to media that shows violence as exciting has influenced their behavior, possibly leading to action like vandalism or fighting. In short, mass media can shape how people think and act, which can sometimes lead to criminal behavior.
Examples of behavioral theory. First is gang activity. Individuals who grow up in neighborhoods where gang membership is common may see gang involvement as rewarding due to the social status, protection, and financial gain associated with it. The second example of behavioral theory is the thief and shoplifting. It is Individuals may engage in shoplifting if they see immediate rewards such as stolen goods without immediate punishment. The third example of behavioral theory is the domestic violence. In cases where domestic violence is present in the family, children may learn to model these behaviors in their own relationship later in life. Behavioral theory explains this as learned behavior reinforced repeated exposure and lack of intervention.
So, behavioral theory or behaviorism is less dominant today than in the mid 20th century. So, dominant means it is the most important, powerful, and influential theory in observing the behavior of a subject. And behavioral theory is also a study of how controlled changes of the subject's environment can affect the subject's behavioral observation. Like, for example, a teacher controlled the environment with a system like rewards and punishment. Like, like for example, for an effort to encourage the desired behavior of the subject to be exposed.
Cognitive theory is a psychological perspective that focuses on how people think, learn, and remember. It says that our thoughts and beliefs affect our behavior. Distorted thought means negative thinking can lead you to a negative behavior and that can lead you to commit a crime. In moral development is about how people learn right from wrong. Lawrence Kohlberg's theory defines three levels. We have pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional. In pre-conventional, people do good things to avoid punishment or to gain reward. And in conventional, people choose to follow rules. And in post-conventional, people follow ethics rather than laws. And in information processing branch is about how our brains take in, understand, and use information. There are three memory stages. We have sensory memory, short-term memory, and long-term memory. In sensory memory, for example, those that information that we gathered through our eyesight, hearing, and other senses. While in short-term memory is kanang dali ra nimo makalimtan. For example, there is new law implemented and you already forgot it. You might be able to violate the new law because you already forgot it. And in long-term memory is kanang dugay makalimtan nimo. For example, if we always use the information, we can easily remember it and it will last longer in our mind. And dugay mawasa imong hunahuna, dugay makalimtan.
So, now we're gonna talk about the background of cognitive theory. Cognitive theory was started gaining attention during 20th century due to the reaction of behaviorism that ignoring the mental processes. Early thinkers like Wilhelm Wundt and William James explore on how the mind works and laid the groundworks for cognitive theory. Then, during 1950s to 1960s, the researcher started to focus on understanding how the cognitive process impact the behavior. Then Jean Piaget studied on how children develop their thinking skill. Then Lawrence Kohlberg and look at on how the moral reasoning evolves over time or evolves year and year and year. Then Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis ex- expanded the cognitive theory to the mental health, and they're analyzing the negative thinking patterns that can lead to negative behavior. So that's it, and that's the background of cognitive theory. Thank you.
Wilhelm Wundt, the father of experimental psychology. He was like the first person to set up a lab to study the mind. He believed that we could understand how people think and feel by carefully observing their conscious experiences. Wundt's work suggests that if we understand what's going on inside a person's head, we might be able to figure out why they might commit a crime. For example, if someone is feeling really angry or frustrated, that might make them more likely to act out violently. William James. Functionalism. James was all about how our thoughts affect our actions. He thought that our minds are constantly working to help us adapt to the world around us. James' ideas help us understand why people make the choices they do, even if they lead to criminal behavior. If someone is thinking is for or their judgment is clouded, they might not fully understand the consequences of their actions. Jan Piaget. Cognitive development. Piaget studied how kids learn and think. He found that children develop their thinking abilities in stages as they grow older. Piaget's theory suggests that people who haven't fully developed their thinking skills might not understand the full impact of their actions. A young child might not understand that stealing is wrong because they haven't yet developed the ability to think about things from other people's perspective. Lawrence Kohlberg. Moral development. Kohlberg built on Piaget work and studies how people develop their sense of right and wrong. He found that people go through different stages of moral reasoning as they mature. Kohlberg's theory can help us understand why people make the choices they do, especially when it comes to ethical dilemmas. Someone with a more developed sense of morality might be less likely to commit a crime because they understand the consequences of their actions and the impact on others. So, these psychologists all help us understand how our minds work and how that affects our behavior, including whether or not we might do something wrong.
Sources of behavioral problems. Number one is cognitive distortions. People may develop thought patterns that make harmful action seem justified or less serious. An example of cognitive distortion in this case could be someone who steals from a store and convince themselves that it's not a big deal. They might think the store is so big they won't notice the small things I take, or the company is wealthy, they won't miss it. These thoughts help them downplay the harm they are causing, making it easier to justify stealing without feeling too guilty. Another example kay kung maghunahuna ang usa ka tawo nga wala may ganahan naho, so wa mo ipaki kung unsay buhaton naho. Kana nga distortion nga gitawag og all or nothing thinking. Murag tan-aw nila nga wala nay nabilin niya maayo, mao nga okay lang mubuhat og dautan. Number 2 is limited moral development. People at lower stages of moral development might be more inclined toward crime because they make decisions based on personal gain rather than empathy or social rules. Limited development kay nagpasabot nga ang usa ka tawo wala pa nakadevelop og klaro nga pagsabot sa right and wrong doings or kulang sa empathy sa uban. An example of limited moral development is a teenager who steals from a store. At a lower stage moral thinking, the teenager only cares about getting the item for themselves, without thinking about the harm to the store or the rules they are breaking. They might say, I want this and can't afford of it, so it's not fair, showing no concern for how their action affect others. This focus on personal benefit instead of following rules or considering others make them more likely to commit a crime. Last is problematic beliefs. Beliefs that normalize or justify crime increase criminal actions. For instance, a criminal might rationalize their behavior as necessary or justified within their belief system. Ang problematic beliefs are ideas that make people think it's okay to break the law. Kani nga beliefs pakatabang para nila to feel better about doing something wrong because they think their actions are justified. When people hold these beliefs, they are more likely to commit crimes without feeling guilty. For example, someone might think rich people are selfish, so it's okay to steal from them. Or everyone breaks the rules, so why shouldn't I? Mao ni mga belief sa mga tao nga naay problema. Even though it's illegal, they don't see that their crime as wrongdoing. They believe that people they are stealing from deserve it or that is normal behavior. In this way, problematic beliefs can make crime seem less serious and increase the chances of someone committing crime.
Examples of cognitive theory: fraud and white-collar crime. People involved in white-collar crime often convince themselves that their actions are not harmful or are justified by financial gain, a process explained by a cognitive theory as self-rationalization. The second example of cognitive theory is the thief and shoplifting. Shoplifters might rationalize their actions by thinking the store can afford it or I deserve this, which allows them to justify theft. The third example of cognitive theory is the violent crime. Those who commit violent acts may hold cognitive distortions that allow them to see their actions as acceptable, often viewing the victim as deserving of harm, downplaying in the impact.
For the cognitive theory, it provides insight into how our thinking influences behavior, particularly in the relation to criminal activity. Like, it is mainly focusing on the memory for storing information that will be gathered.